So as many of you know, I've just returned from participating in a 2-day gathering to remember Ajahn Chah in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. So it was a very well-attended gathering, 40 monks from all around the world, from all the branch monasteries, plus I don't know how many lay people, a hall full of lay devotees. And different of the senior monks, Thai and Western, gave reflections on, some about their time with Ajahn Chah and some, about the teachings. And, what came over is how, what such a wise and skillful teacher, just in terms of how he could just say the right thing at the right time. Simple but direct. And of course, he's a good example of his own practice and his own way of being. So I had the good fortune to meet Ajahn Chah in Hampstead, England in 1979 when I was a layman going to the Hampstead Vihara. And it was quite a wonderful experience being in Ajahn Chah's presence. So normally I would go there on a Sunday night to get my, Dharma top-up before the week ahead at work. Chanting, meditation, listen to a Dharma talk. But when Ajahn Chah was there, it was such a wonderful experience. I stopped my other activities and went there every night when he was there. When I was travelling, people were talking about AI. And, you can get Dharma talks on AI now. And have a psychotherapist who just says nice things to you on AI. All sorts of things now with AI. Yeah. But, the experience about being around Ajahn Chah, you couldn't get that from AI. And his presence and his being, and I just couldn't match that. And so, he'd, on the evenings, we'd have usual puja, meditation, and then he would, offer a little talk, and then we would go downstairs and have a cup of tea. It was a time for us to ask questions from Ajahn Chah. But sometimes he would ask you questions. And it's a particular quality of the Buddha that, sometimes also answering questions by asking a question back. One example from Ajahn Chah, who seemed to be quite skilled at this, like the farmer coming to Ajahn Chah and saying, Ajahn, you have all these Western disciples from different countries, but you don't speak their language. How's that? And Ajahn Chah, just replies back, you're a farmer. Do you have cows and ducks and chickens? He said, yes. Do you speak cow? Do you speak duck? Do you speak chicken? Just the spontaneous sort of wisdom of Ajahn Chah. And sort of, they say, a bit like Zen-like, it's sort of his sort of way he questioned you to, throw you back on yourself a bit. So the question Ajahn Chah asked me, he said, what do you think it would be like to sit there for a whole hour without a single thought coming into your mind? And I've been meditating for about a year at that time. And my answer was, quite enlightened. And his reply to that was, like a stone. Now when you hear this sort of teaching from such a renowned master, it's something that you don't forget. You sort of reflect on it through your life and practice. And one of the qualities that is often talked about Ajahn Chah was his understanding of people and where they're at. And in those days, new to meditation. And I was out to get these jhanas, get rid of these thoughts so I could get these jhanas. So meditation is about, really a lot of willpower to stay with the breath and get rid, and not think. Maybe this is what Ajahn Chah noticed, maybe from my expression on my face while I was meditating. But reflecting on this teaching, we're not stones, are we? We're human beings and we think. It's the nature of the human condition that we think. And when I reflect on that teaching, it's not about not thinking, but having a skillful relationship to the thinking mind. In terms of the identification with thought, so one of the teachings of Ajahn Chah was about, he began by saying about if we didn't think, or if things didn't happen in the mind, how would we develop wisdom? How would we understand the mind? If the mind was just blank, would wisdom develop? So the teaching that I've reflected on is the teaching about understanding the monkey mind. And if we don't want the monkey to be a monkey, then there's a problem. But if we understand the monkey, it's not a problem. So, for instance, said we could sit there for a whole hour without a single thought coming into our mind. But what would happen when we leave the meditation seat and we start interacting, and thoughts come up, and we still identify with them because we haven't learned to watch thought. So we can have a nice meditation, but when we come out of the meditation, then problems arise because we're still identified with our thinking processes, because we haven't developed that skill to watch thought, to be aware of thought. And so this is, to me what Ajahn Chah is pointing at. Yes, okay, we sit and thoughts come and go, but how to cultivate that awareness of those thoughts. To be aware of the mind. And one of the comments in that talk, what Ajahn Chah said, was about if we're not aware of the monkey, then we become the monkey. And that's what can happen, isn't it? When we sit there, no thoughts, and then the thoughts come and we identify with them. We become that. But also, there's a skillful use of thought in terms of, contemplating Dhamma. So thought can be a useful tool for contemplation also. Another teaching from Ajahn Chah that I quite like and reflect on is the teaching about the room with one chair in the room. And the teaching here, if we are sat in the one chair, then whoever comes into the room won't stay long because we're sat in the only chair in the room. So, reflecting on this. If we're grounded in awareness in the present moment, that, we're sat in the one chair, then whatever arises in the mind, if we don't get out of the chair to get preoccupied by it, it won't last. And in practice, I see it like not getting caught into the thoughts that keep certain of these hindrances going. Getting out of the chair is getting preoccupied with the thoughts that feed the hindrances. But if we're just aware, we stay with awareness, then these hindrances are not fed. They won't last. Now, to stay with awareness when we first come to practice is, I wouldn't say it's a particular easy thing to do. So easy for us to get caught into habitual thoughts. And also we are learning, about which thoughts are useful and which thoughts not useful. And that is something we have to learn to experience. So this is what I see the helpfulness of like having a meditation object, a meditation theme, like the breath. Something that helps us stay in the chair. And, as we're breathing in and out, things arise. But if we stay as best we can with the breath, then we're not going out to get preoccupied with those things that arise in consciousness, the moods, the thoughts. And, when one stays with the meditation object in this way, these things tend to lose their power and don't last so long, because we're not getting preoccupied with them. So sitting in the chair can be staying with, being with awareness if we can, or staying with our meditation object or meditation theme. So we have many different forms of, say, sati. We have anapanasati, we have maranasati, we have chaga-nusati, we have buddha-nusati, dhamma-nusati, sangha-nusati. So many meditation things we can use to train the mind to stay more in the present moment, staying in the chair, so we don't get overly preoccupied with some maybe unskillful habits of thought that are not so helpful. And, this naturally promotes a quality of awareness of mind. And a quality of, just peaceful observation. Like in my, early days of practice, restlessness was a problem. Restless mind. Trying to get rid of the thoughts, get to that calm state again. But really, getting out of the chair to kick the restlessness out of the room, and then the restlessness just sits in the chair. The more you try to get rid of restlessness through effort, the more restless you get. So I'm just practicing more just awareness, awareness of mind. When there's restlessness there, then the mind thinks. But we can be aware of that. And just allow it to run its course. We don't go out to to try and get rid of it. It'll naturally go to cessation. Just like if you don't put fuel on a fire, it'll naturally go out. But of course, if you try and kick the fire to put it out, then there's more problem. So this is the sort of understanding that arises. This understanding of mind. When the mind is restless, this is the way it thinks. When the mind's anxious, this is the way it thinks. When the mind has desire, this is the way it thinks. When the mind has doubt, this is the way it thinks. So we begin to understand these different hindrances and how they manifest. And also how they manifest in terms of sensations in the body. But now we say we're knowing the monkey rather than being the monkey, because we've cultivated this ability to be aware, to be awake. And then these things lose their power, because mindfulness and wisdom have been given more strength. So then one doesn't have to suffer from these different hindrances, like restlessness. One can be more at peace with the restless mind, because we know the monkey. We know it. And this is, an understanding we have to develop through our practice, bit by bit. It's not an overnight thing we, can realize overnight, but through the years of practice, we become more aware, more skilled, more understanding. And then the mind can have more peace. And not just peace of sitting on a meditation cushion, but more peace when we have to do things, interact, because of this understanding. And more continuous awareness of mind. So even as we're interacting, if something skillful comes up, we're aware of that. So that, the thoughts that come into the mind don't come out of the mouth. And that's what we can say we're doing meditation, isn't it? We sit and thoughts come up in the mind, but they don't come out of our mouth. But we can be aware. When you read the suttas, there's this scenario where Mara comes to the Buddha and says, "What are you doing sitting here? You should be back at the palace and looking after your family, looking after your priestly duties." And the Buddha says, "I know you, Mara." And Mara says, "The Buddha knows me," and disappears. So this is, Buddha is mindfulness and wisdom. Mara is defilements. These things can be known, understood. And that is really that sort of understanding these things must be done before we can let go. Like I was commenting last night, Luang Por Sumedho's latest talk, understanding self, then letting go of self. So there's a few thoughts to offer this morning, stemming from my appreciation of Ajahn Chah, his example, his teachings, and his legacy. Anyway.